with us here on KXAN Live. I'm Will Dupree coming to you from the KXAN Live studio on this Thursday afternoon. One topic we're going to talk about today is about the future of Central Texas's water supply and the effects that's going to have. We have a new investigation that a lot of you have been engaging with over on our website, kxan.com. And here's the headline right here. It reads, "Climate change not part of LCRA water plan. KXAN investigation may change that." Now, the reporter behind this new investigation that, again, is trending on our website at kxan.com is Chief Meteorologist David Yeomans. And David is joining us here to talk more about what his investigation found. So, David, thanks so much for joining us, and we do appreciate you being here this afternoon.
Will, thanks for your time, and everybody watching, I appreciate your interest.
Yeah, we want to just get started really quickly. One really great way to kind of start these Q&As with about some of our investigations is talking about how this idea originated. Again, I'm just showing everybody at home the web story and the headline there, but David, give us a sense of how this all got started for you.
Well, Will, it's kind of interesting. I saw the state climatologist speak over the winter to a group of concerned business owners around the Lake Travis area, folks who own marinas or lakeside restaurants or whatever that are suffering because of the low lake levels during this 4-year ongoing drought. And the state climatologist, a man named Dr. John Nielsen Gammon, who's been a professor at A&M of meteorology and climatology for decades, says that in the future, as climate change continues to warm Texas temperatures, it's going to lead to more evaporation on our surface water supplies, and it's going to lead to less dependable rain, basically longer periods without rain, which we've seen so many of recently. And he says that this is going to have a net decrease on the amount of water that we can count on in our lakes. I thought this was pretty interesting because, as we all know, the metro area's population that depends on that water, more than 1 million people drinking from Lakes Travis and Buchanan, is only exploding. So how are we going to balance that growing future population with the potentially declining water supply?
And the group that's really responsible for overseeing the water supply in some of those coveted lakes and necessary lakes that we have in our area is the LCRA, the Lower Colorado River Authority, right?
Yeah, they have a really important role, Will, and a lot of folks may not realize, how these rules are made and how they divvy up the water. The LCRA and their 15-person board, who's appointed by Governor Abbott, they largely control, who's getting how much water. So if you're a city or a residential area or even a new development, you kind of have to apply through the LCRA for the chunk of water that you want. The city of Austin is, of course, by far the biggest water user, but they do have a really important role. So when I realized that our water supply may be changing in the future as the climate changes, I dug through what the LCRA calls their water management plan. It was most recently updated in 2020, and it basically dictates who can get how much water based on the worst drought that we've ever seen. So it says, based on what they call the drought of record, 2008 to 2015, including 2011 when it was so awfully hot and dry, this makes sure that the current population can get through a repeat of that drought just fine. But then my interest was even more heightened because I thought, well, hold on, we've got the state climatologist over here saying that droughts are going to be more severe and worse in the future, and we have the growing population to worry about. So they're just planning, sort of looking backward, if you will. Why aren't they incorporating this data looking forward that climate scientists are finding?
And in your story, you featured this graphic that talks about the 100th meridian, and this is really explaining what the future outlook is for our area and how the climate is changing around here. So explain what this 100th meridian is and what the changes look for that. So we'll show that graphic too.
Will, the state climatologist had a really interesting quote. He said, if you want to see what your climate looks like in the future, look a few dozen miles to the west in Texas. And what that means is, as you can see on this map, the white line is the 100th meridian. Ever since explorers were roaming the central and western U.S., they found this kind of 100th meridian, the 100th line of longitude, to be the kind of dividing line between more lush landscapes with lots of rain to the east and the more desertified or arid landscapes to the west, like New Mexico, Colorado, and of course West Texas, where the vegetation is so much drier and so different than what we have here in central Texas. So what he means is, basically that dividing line is going to be moving eastward, and in the future, with a warming climate, the 100th meridian may turn into that red line, the 98th meridian, and he says this is going to place our drinking water supply, the Highland Lakes, in that more arid climate zone. hence the less dependable rain, the hotter temperatures. And this could really get us in trouble in the future, Will.
With climate change affecting that and making things much more hot and arid in our area, you, of course, reached out to the LCRA to wonder about their water management plan, not including climate change in particular in its language. What did the organization have to say about that?
You know, what they said, Will, was basically most regional water planners, or water planners like they are, do plan for the future by looking backwards. Let's see what the worst is that we've ever seen, and let's make sure that we can get through that again in the future. That's how they're operating their water plan right now. But what was really interesting, Will, is during the course of this months-long investigation, I heard something from their executive vice president of water, John Hoffman at LCRA, that I didn't really expect. I said, how are you going to incorporate what the state climatologist is finding, that we may have a different amount of water in our lakes in the future, with your water plans? And he said, I don't know how to do that just yet, but that it will be a part of the discussion next time this water plan is updated. So John Hoffman committed to opening the public comment period for this water plan in 2025, which was the first public commitment we've heard on when that may happen. So folks who may be concerned about this can comment to the LCRA and have their voices heard at that time. And basically, it was just big news that he's saying that this next iteration of the plan may indeed include future projections of worse droughts instead of just looking back at that 2008 to 2015 drought.
And you mentioned there the year 2025. That's when they're going to rewrite this plan. Is that right?
That's, well, it gets into a lot of complicated language because the LCRA has to model all the water stuff. They have to get public input. They have to make a plan. The board has to approve a plan. And then the board submits it to approval to the TCEQ, the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. And they're kind of the stamp, ultimately, for when this plan is approved and goes into effect. So in recent history, Will, the TCEQ has approved new plans, and they've gone into effect every 5 years, 2010, 2015, 2020. So some are expecting them to get the final stamp of approval in 2025. The LCRA, however, told me that they're kind of going to start the process for public comment in 2025. And this is a really interesting issue with a lot of wide-reaching benefits. Not only does it affect us here, who depend on water for the lakes for showering and drinking and washing the dishes, but there's a 120-year-old industry down near the coast of rice farming. And we spoke in the story that you'll see tonight on KXAN at 10 with a rice farmer named Tim Gertson. He's a third-generation rice farmer. And he says, it's kind of tough, a tough pill to swallow because we're trying to conserve water any way we can, spending a bunch of money to do all these conservation efforts. Meantime, he's not able to grow 3/4 of his crop this year, so of course he's losing money. Some people who work for him are not getting paid at all this year, so they're having to go elsewhere. But he says it's a tough pill to swallow from down there in the Eagle Lake area, south of I-10, to see all this booming development up the river, demanding the water and taking water from the lakes, whereas he says, all this development is new. We've been here for 120 years. Why can't we have some of it too? So, it's an interesting dichotomy, who's kind of fighting over this water.
Yeah, and you can read more about David's investigation into this particular issue right now on KXAN.com. Again, we showed you that headline a few moments ago, but remind everybody tonight, David, people can watch the story in full during a newscast. Tell us again when we can see that.
Water Worry will air tonight on KXAN News at 10. If you don't want to stay up that late, we actually have an hour-long newscast on the CW from 9 to 10. It will air there as well. So I hope you're able to join us for one of those tonight.
All right, we're going to leave that conversation here for now. And David, thank you again for talking about your reporting, and we'll tune in tonight at 9 and 10 to see it in full.
Thank you, Will.
All right, everybody, you can read David's full story at KXAN.com right now. It is trending on our website right now. A lot of you have interest in this topic, so please check it out whenever you have a chance. I'm Will Dupree in the KXAN Live Studio. Thank you for watching again this afternoon. We'll see you back here at another time. Hope you all stay safe and healthy out there.